Hey everybody, it's your buddy Beard Grizzly, and today I wanted to talk to those that just can't be bothered to read tutorials. First off, shame on you. But hi. Then again, this is also a great opportunity for those of you that haven't dug into the game or picked it up just yet to see what the early hours of the title look like and what you can expect to see going forward with how to understand the game and, again, just what to expect and what to see. Let's start with your character and what's going on with this screen. Knowing what's happening here is the most essential piece of information to really understand what your hunter needs while out on a hunt or otherwise. We'll go from top and work our way down. And yes, basics come first. Life and stamina bars are in the top left-hand corner. Life is pretty well self-explanatory, but what happens when you get hit by a monster may not be. You'll see that part of the bar goes red, and this means you're able to recover this health naturally without the use of curative items. It just takes a little bit of time, so keep yourself out of danger while this is the case. Stamina is also pretty darned important, but not as punishing as in games like Dark Souls, if you're familiar with how it works there. Here, the only things to really worry about for your stamina are when you're guarding an attack, running, dodging in any manner, or sometimes becoming affected by a monster's attack. Some monsters have the ability to straight drain your stamina, and this definitely can be a challenge. What's underneath your stamina and health bars, however, is arguably more important since you'll be going through this like crazy in Monster Hunter, and that's your weapon's sharpness. Sharpness of a weapon affects several things, but the short list includes how much damage you do and if your attacks will be reflected by some tougher hides. Keeping your sharpness high is important, but it's pretty easy to get back considering whetstones are infinitely available in this version of the game. But I'll get to item usage in a minute. If you are playing the game, however, and you see your weapon start to bank off or bounce off of a monster's hide, it's probably best to step back and sharpen your weapon. And if that doesn't work, well, time to start looking for a better weak point. There are other things that may be found at the bottom underneath your sharpness, and certain weapons have something different, like the spirit gauge for the longsword, but I want to cover those in more detail when we get to actual weapon looks. For now, this is just about the basics. Below that is the health of your palico, or your cat buddy. If he gets hit too often, he'll have to retreat for a bit, but don't worry, he'll be back after some time to help you hunt with whatever it is you might be doing. Palicos are great because they do help with actually drawing the attention of the monster, or being able to give you a much needed heal when need be. The minimap is there for a quick tool to see what's in the immediate vicinity of your hunter, but to see the map in full, you'll want to hit the touchpad to bring it up. As a side note, I'm going by PlayStation controls here, but you can probably figure the equivalency for the Xbox controller pretty quickly. The map is full of tons of information, and a lot of it can be hard to parse sometimes. Well, until you start to filter out the results. R1 and L1 will cycle what is and isn't shown, while large monsters are always there for you to be tracked. Use this to make it easier to gather materials you may be after, or to check for vigor wasp spawns to recount your health, or anything else of the like if you need certain materials or otherwise. Speaking of, this little guy is hanging out in my room. And not so little, kinda creepy, well. To finish up our talk on the map, you'll be able to scroll up and down between the layers of the map as well. This further helps with tracking and being able to locate materials you're after. Anyway, the most important thing to realize about your tools is right here in the bottom right of the screen. If you hold L1, you'll be able to see a quick selection of some tools, which you can customize for your liking. Still haven't done that for myself. Reminder to do that. To activate an item, just point in the direction with the right stick and let go of the sticks while still holding L1. It took me a little bit to really get the hang of this and also realize I didn't need to hold L1 in order to change my items at all. If you're a veteran of the game, you'll know what I mean. Originally, you had to hold L1 to change your items that was in the held spot. Now you can just cycle through them with the direction buttons on the fly. It's so much better. In this version, you don't have to worry about loading up on items like pickaxes, bug nets, or anything like that. Now it's always available for you to use, and all you have to do is just go over to a mining node, a fishing node, whatever else you may be after, and just well, hit the button. This is a huge quality of life change for Monster Hunter and a few less items to have to restock every time you go back to town. Next to your item wheel is your loaded ammo for your launcher and grappler. I would always recommend to have something in this spot and then also remember that it's there, because I tend to forget that it is. You can also load up the capture net to your grappler, and I find myself doing this a lot to capture endemic life, quickly do some fishing, and a number of other little things that you can find around the map. It's handy to have equipped, and I feel it might be underutilized by some of you if you are happening to play the game. Remember that big old Vigor Wasp in my room? Capture net. And for the love of Monster Hunter, throw something with the grappler at the Vespoids to kill them. That may be my best piece of advice in this whole video, as silly as that sounds. When you start to hunt Vespoids, you'll understand, especially if you want to make their armor. They're just too weak and fragile, and they fall apart all the time. And that's just the main screen and how to manage the map and your items. Oh boy, let's keep moving or I'm going to be here all day. While you're out on a hunt, you'll find a whole ton of different points to gather up from monsters in the field, be it footprints, mucus, feathers, doodles from felines, bugs. Well, the list can go pretty well on and on. If the scout flies highlight it, you'll want to gather it up, and that's this green glob that you see that kind of follows you all over the place. Just run over it and press circle, then keep moving on. This leads me to the Hunter's Guide, a very, very helpful tool to understanding where, how, and what with a monster, endemic life, caught fish. Well, this is the kind of stuff that I'd expect to go to a wiki page for, but the Monster Hunter team decided it best to load it up here inside the game. You'll want to check in with the ecologist back in town after every hunt you have for a good while. The reason is to increase your overall understanding inside of your Hunter's Guide to ensure you know what's up with a monster. Seriously, this book is full of know-how. Not sure how to fully take down a monster? Unsure of its weak points? Unsure how to get certain items from a monster? Refer to the book. It's amazing how much info is in here and what weapon types are even strong against certain monsters to boot, and where to hit them. With this out of the way, how best to maximize your hunts? Well, in the beginning of the game, just keep playing. Seriously, just play. Once you unlock the provisioners after a few hunts, however, you'll be revisiting them often to restock on minor and major quests after almost every expedition, aka free hunt, you undertake, or even sometimes even after major quest hunts. The rewards are worth stockpiling for trade later on, as resource points are handy to have for meals, trading, and barter for components or, well, a lot of stuff, honestly. And that's the name of the game, stuff. There are weekly quests to undertake called limited bounties that are given to you automatically. There are refillable bounties that seem to be there every time you get back from a hunt. And then there are quest-related or critical bounties that are given by NPCs. All of these are just given to you for playing, and if you're diligent about refilling them every so often, you'll be swimming in points and items in no time. There are also optional missions you can undertake from the provisioners with limited uses applied to them. You can scour the list to see if there's anything you're interested in from this list, as it's a great way to go after certain materials or certain monsters. These can be accepted from any quest giver, either up in the Gathering Hub, the Handler, or the quest board. That's actually a nice little extra to talk about. There are so many places to accept quests in the game in the Village Hub. Heck, you can even restart a quest out in the field if you're hunting with friends. I find this to be one of the best systems they have in the game so far. I, granted, wasn't running into any of the issues people have been talking about with the online matchmaking, so I'll have to keep playing to see what I'm missing, I suppose. Though that system is a little clunky, no arguing that. Speaking of, let's head up to the Gathering Hub. This is the place you can see your friends, group up with them, invite them to squads, into a party, a number of different ways to interact with them. This is also the place, speaking of, that you can create a squad, but I want to touch base on that later. It's a smaller area than some from previous games, but it does have some side things to do, like drink flagons of mead and then pass out on the table. There are two handlers at the counter in the Gathering Hub. The one on the left is for the arena counter, where you are graded on how long it takes you to hunt certain monsters within the arena, but also have certain chances to get different item rewards, like coins to turn in for different armor and weapons down the line. Certain conditions may apply to these hunts, however, like limited friends, no friends at all, lower time limits, and etc. The one on the right is the usual quest handler, where you can start investigations, quests, urgent quests, and so on from her. It's pretty similar to the handler down in the canteen in the standard village hub. Let's turn down the quest window a bit as well. There's the name of the quest and then the conditions of said quest, be it for a win or a loss. Just make sure you check these out before you go, especially the first time. After that, be mindful of where the hunt takes place. Mark my words, you'll forget some cold or hot drinks one of these days because you didn't look at this information. Rewards can sometimes change as well, especially in instances of kill or capture of a monster. And to call it out now, some monsters are required to be captured during certain quests. The short version to this is to watch for a monster to limp away or watch your map for the skull icon to appear over their heads. This indicates they are weak enough for capture. To capture a monster, you'll need a trap of some kind, along with a couple trank bombs. These items can be found on page 6 in the overall crafting guide if you look at all craftable items. This can be found in the start menu or from your equipment box. Speaking of the equipment box, you can check what items are auto-crafted from here, along with what items you can have hanging around. You can check current stock on monster parts from the selling list, which also means you can still sell off monster parts besides. Still, this is where to stock up before you go on a hunt, along with the item provisioner. Personally, I would stock up on some trap tools and leave the rest be from him. A lot of the items supplied are kind of easy to get a hold of while you're just out and about in the world. Speaking of, don't forget to drop items off there as well, otherwise you'll have a full inventory going out on a hunt. Whoops. Also, how many more times can I say speaking of? But before you hunt, you better eat something, and you should always meet up with your resident swollen feline chef. Is my favorite NPC in this whole game, I swear. Meals are very important for a number of reasons, but the basic gist is to increase your stats before you go out on a hunt, even if it's just for some health and stamina. You'll want to look for the shiny ingredients more than anything else, as these really do help with the extra boosts and activating certain effects if you double up on the same ingredients, like double meat, fish, or veggies. Double meat is boosted attack while one is shiny, double fish is boosted defense, and double veggies is boosted elemental resistance. Certain monsters might call for different stat buffs, and as you get more ingredients, the more effects can also be received from meals. And just keep in mind that these can kind of help if you're definitely having trouble in certain ways, either taking too much damage, not dealing enough damage, so on. You kind of get the gist. But still, this isn't enough. You should always check in with the smithy after every hunt, especially after you fight a new monster. New weapons and armor are some of the best things to check on right after a hunt to see what kind of new gear you can get. The smithy is a lot more upfront about how his gear works as well, especially with the weapon trees available to see just through the basic menus on how weapons evolve. This wasn't in previous games. Again, this was wiki material. If I have to give some quick recommendations on early weapons, by the by, look for things with poison. Poison has always been a very strong element early on, but if you find a weapon that doesn't support the poison element at all, just hunt with what you're comfortable with. Look over these trees and it'll help you with where to go next with a new weapon you have, or allow for ease in acquiring all the weapon options from upgrades. Armor's a little simpler than weapons, where you can craft the base piece of armor and then upgrade it with stuff called armor spheres. Remember those provision quests we were talking about earlier? Best place to get a hold of these spheres. They will only increase the defense on a piece of armor, so don't expect anything too crazy. Still, this is the best way to see how you can upgrade that hard-earned equipment. With that all out of the way, let's just go on a hunt. If you want to just do a free hunt for a while you have some limited time or just something like that, just open up your hunter's guide with the touchpad, go to the world map, and select the destination you're after. I've only got the one so far, which shows you how much time I've actually had to play. While out and about, you'll come in contact with a bunch of vines. If you hold down the run button, you can actually jump up and to the side on these vine walls. You can also completely dismount from these vines by hitting the X button. Falling from great heights doesn't create any adverse effects, and you're able to just kind of hop quickly off of a set of a vine from the top of a hill by just holding the run button. This allows you to also slide down steep hills. Lastly, aside from swinging on different vines, you'll be able to slap a flying wyvern with something from your launcher and then hit the circle button to latch onto them. They'll transport you to different areas along the map, and when you get to a spot you want, you can just let go of the wyvern and carry on. When fighting, think about what we talked about earlier on. Your stamina bar can deplete when you're hungry, so take some steaks with you or look around for other protein sources, like bugs. Yeah, eat a bug. Just do it. You're given a barbecue spit to take out on a hunt, and timing the cooking process can be a bit confusing. Let's take a look at this process a few different times. The color of the meat and the music timing is very important and can definitely help with this process. Personally, I tend to focus on the color of the meat to get what type I want, be it a rare steak, well done steak, or otherwise. Well done has the best stamina increases for your hunter, but again, these are temporary. You can hunt down some of the herbivores in the area to get some of the raw meat and steaks in a pinch. Also, this is magic meat because it'll never go bad, so don't worry about that. I still don't know how that works. Keep your eyes open for things to grab with your capture net as well. Nothing is really out of the question in terms of bugs, fish, birds, rabbits, you name it. There's just a bunch of things to grab, and they all give resource points to boot. Everything you generally do out in the world is rewarded in some way or fashion. While using potions, unlike previous games, you can now move and even run a bit while sipping them down. This goes for anything, be it antidotes, potions, stamina potions, the list goes on, even eating a frickin' shank of meat. This is a very handy thing to keep in mind, especially when you're being chased down by an aggressive monster. What else? What else? Oh, right, the most important thing. Just take your time and have fun. It's one of those games where you really don't have to rush, and it's all about self-improvement to boot. I can't stress that enough. It's a game you can come back to after a couple months, pick up and start refining your skills again, or try a different weapon set altogether. Start a new character if you want as well, and approach the game a little different with little to no armor, or something totally completely different from what you had before. Creating your own challenges in addition to the ones already in-game is half the fun. It sort of harkens back to the elder days of gaming in a respect that I find. There's still a lot of things to cover, especially when it comes to the weapons and while you're out and about hunting around, but the menus and certain items I find that are seldom used by those that I've seen play the game so far are really what I wanted to cover, and I think that it's the best place to start and especially build your own skills. When you combine all of these elements together, I personally find the grind to be fun and worthwhile, rewarding you in a bunch of different ways. I think that's where I'll leave it for now. Most of the feedback I've gotten so far from people on our last look into the game comes from a lot of what we covered today. Next up for me is to cover all of the weapons as detailed as I can. There's a lot more to look at with the way this game handles, so buckle up. My sister's home for the next couple of weeks as well, so I think that'll be great content to make in the meantime while she's home, and I can spend some time with her. I know that's a little out of the blue, but just so you guys know where we're headed at this point. Once I get into the game more, we'll be getting into some of the lore topics as well, but for now, I'm just having so much fun playing the game and experiencing what weapons are like again, along with seeing what they've changed so far. Until next hunt, however, keep your blade sharp and your senses keen, my friends. Take care.